And here we are. Welcome back to the Redshirt Sophomore podcast, where we never sit out. We are your hosts, Matthew and Chris Dawson. Wow, what a week of college football. I think it lived up. I think it lived up to the hype. Now, there were a couple blowouts, especially in the games that we covered, but there were also a lot of just dog fights. It was great. I had a lot of fun watching this college football. What about you?
It's fantastic. I mean, on a weekend where my fantasy team is absolutely letting me down, college football would never. And that's why we love college football. It always gives back. Like you said, it lived up to the hype. This week, every window, you had fantastic games going down the wire. Fourth quarters, you had to tune into storylines, injuries, coaching battles. I mean, it had everything you wanted. And college football is fantastic because of all those reasons. And and we did pretty good, honestly. I mean, you and I both pretty damn good picking winners.
Pretty
You
good.
obviously had a
I think we just lit it up. Are you serious? You went 9-0 picking winners. 9-0. Gosh, I hope someone listening to this just absolutely parlayed the piss out of that, because that would have hit big.
would have been nuclear.
Would have been nuclear. And we'll get into the Utah UCLA game. I was on the wrong side of it. And for Dawson's Diner, I had their spread and I had their money line when I found out that Cam Rising was not going to play. So
Doesn't matter. Stop betting against Utah. Stop betting against Kyle Whittingham.
I know,
you just gotta stop. You cannot.
Well, I was on them. I was on week 1 when they were playing Florida, and I have their over season win total. So I'm not disappointed at all. In fact, we talked about this on the show last time, I would rather have Utah win that game because their schedule is much tougher down the road.
Yep.
Because I took both UCLA and Utah's overs on their wins for the season, and yeah. And look, again, we're on this Washington State team like white on rice, and they're coming through. Now, I was riding with you this week in terms of like the picks, right? Because I thought it was a good matchup for them. I thought they were at home. And good Lord. I mean, we'll get into that game. But other games to talk about, LSU, Arkansas. Arkansas, after losing at home to BYU, they come out and give LSU a scare in Baton Rouge. A scare.
Yeah.
And guess what? All of you Jaden Daniels haters out there, guess who won in that game?
I'm a Jaden Daniels hater.
You're a Jaden Daniels
not a hater. I'm not a hater. I'm just.
I know you're not a believer.
Continue to
I know
show
you
me more. And he's been great for 2 weeks. 3
weeks.
I don't. In SEC play, he's been great so far.
He just wasn't good against Florida State. That was it.
And in the second half for sure. That spread was 17.5. That is mind-boggling. I didn't even. If we had covered this game, I would have slapped.
I thought it was like
maybe
12
a double unit on it. It was 17.5.
I thought it was
is what it finished at. That's why I'm like, someone told me that, and then I was like, oh my gosh. And the Battle of the Boot, fantastic rivalry. That game's always close. Remember last year when LSU and Arkansas were playing? It was after LSU beat Bama, and then LSU and Arkansas opened as a 3-point. LSU opened as a 3-point favorite against a struggling Arkansas team, and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, LSU in the points, and it ended up being a dogfight again. And just like this was,
dude, you're right. It was 17.5. Wow, I could have sworn it was lower than that, but yeah.
And I mean, no Rocket Sanders either. I mean, Arkansas still ran the ball kind of well.
They did, to their credit. I thought. I mean, I don't know, but
he would have helped. Obviously, I mean, he's an elite player. He would have helped for sure.
Yeah. Other games around the clock: Texas A&M, Auburn. Obviously, Connor Weaven goes down. We don't know the stats on that injury yet. We know it's lower body. We know it's ankle or foot. X-rays were negative, so that's kind of good. It still means that it could be an Achilles thing, for all we know. But we'll know more. Well, this video will come out Monday, so we'll know more on Monday, I guess, as we're recording this on Sunday. But A&M just blitzed the piss out of Auburn. Auburn stinks. They're really bad. I think we thought that this transfer portal haulover was going to be really good for them. They were too late getting a quarterback. Payne Thorne is just not that good at all. Their offensive line, I mean, we talked about it potentially being an upgrade for them, right? And that's been a struggle these past couple of years. And honestly, I thought their defense was fine, especially their D-line, which is pretty decent. But the issue on the offensive line, I mean, you have right tackle, Britton from Western Kentucky, Avery Jones from East Carolina at center. And you had that left tackle from Tulsa, who I don't know if he's playing guard, but at least for Tulsa, he played tackle. I mean, this is a G5 offensive line is really what it was. And I think we bought into hey, these are really good players. Maybe these are Power 5 level players. They've not been great up until this point. Robbie Ashford came in. He stunk too. They put in their third string for the last possession. Don't even know his name. Not off the top of my head to tell you his name. So look, you might want to give people are going to give DJ Durkin credit for this. I'm going to point to this into the direction. I think Auburn's offense is just terrible.
So far. Now, if you're an Auburn fan and you're still worried, or an Auburn better, as myself is at over 6.5 on the year, all you got to do is go 2-4 in the SEC West. Mississippi State seems like a team that's very winnable at home. Ole Miss at home. Arkansas, you got to play on the road, but regardless, you're still fine. It's still early. We knew it was going to be a transition, for Auburn, that offensive line coming together. I'm just trying to talk myself into, continuing to believe in the pick that I have. But it was bad. It was bad.
Look, I have Mississippi State over 6.5. I think it's going to come down to either both of us might not hit the over, but it definitely whoever wins that game is going to actually have a chance to hit their over.
Yeah. So,
although let me talk about Mississippi State, South Carolina. Once again, Spencer Rattler is incredible. I mean,
he really is.
He is incredible. Good Lord. And Leggett, or their receiver, oh my goodness, he's awesome. But let me tell you this. There were some instances in that game where Will Rogers, they had him taking shots downfield. And what do you know? He throws for 400 yards. I mean, where was that against LSU last week?
About time.
Could
have been a game.
It could have been an actual game, but instead, that defense is a bit of concern, though. It feels like their secondary, we know that they lost a ton in their secondary. It feels like their defensive line is fine. It's just, Spencer Rattler was dealing. Dude, he has been dealing. If they go to a bowl game, it is because of Spencer Rattler, and he should be thought of highly in the NFL draft process.
Where's his hype right now? Everyone's talking about in the first round, JJ McCarthy, obviously Drake May, Caleb Williams, Shedeur Sanders, Michael Penix, and those guys obviously deserve their credit for sure. Spencer Rattler has been incredible. Here's another guy, Cam Ward, and we'll get to him obviously, but Spencer Rattler is doing what Cam Ward is doing, but on a much worse supporting cast. And Cam Ward's obviously going to get the credit he deserves, hopefully this week, and more national buildup as Washington State continues to win, continues to roll and climb up the AP poll rankings.
Climb. Other games, Georgia against UAB. Talk about a slow start. Jared Zeno there, balling out a quarterback for UAB. Trent Dilfer yelling at refs on the sideline. Carson Beck, I thought, played fantastic, by the way. I thought he played insane. They had one big drop from Aaron Smith, is that his name? Where absolutely and you actually saw the arm talent that Carson Beck has. You saw him uncork and it just bounced right off the dude's hands. It would have been like a 70-yard touchdown. But Georgia, once again, they pulled away pretty late, which is, they've done that every game. They start out slow and then they pull away. But I'll let you briefly talk about the Minnesota game, and I'll let you get it off your chest, and then we can get into the real games.
I tweeted out, by the way, if you're not following us, it's at the Redshirt Sophomore on Twitter. I said we deserve to be relegated, right? We should be put down in the MAC. Nothing that Minnesota has done this year has told me that they deserve to be in the Big Ten Conference, right? You lose to a Northwestern team that is terrible. And yes, they played inspired in the fourth quarter. It doesn't matter. You blew you got outscored 21-0 in the fourth quarter by Ben fucking Bryant. That is terrible. You couldn't move. You couldn't get first downs when you needed to. When you were running the ball all game, you went soft on 4th and 2 when you could have put the game away, and then you punted. And your kicker, your specialist, and I'm not gonna name his name because he's a good fella, but he fucking sucks. Bad on kick return, bad on punt return. Okay, I just said his name. Regardless, he was the gunner, and all he had to do is stay in the end zone. And I get it, gunner on punt is not an easy job at all. But if he just catches the ball, it was a beautiful punt. Mark Crawford has been really good. He's been good his whole career at pinning people deep, coffin corner style. And we would have won the game. It would have had to go 99 yards instead of 80 yards. Regardless, history happens. This is a big time wake-up call. If you thought the North Carolina game wasn't a wake-up call, this is. for PJ Fleck and that staff in year 7. This is unacceptable. I'm done. Real quick, I do want to mention shout out to Arizona State for kind of giving USC a ball game, right? And that's a team that is, you want to talk about every reason to give
Drew Pine,
up this year. Was it Drew Pine? Yeah, because what's the name's hurt.
Forget, and Jaden Rashada.
Rashada, yeah, and obviously the running back Cameron Skedabo had a heck of a game. And yeah, the defense, ended up kind of getting shredded in the end. But regardless, that's a battered ASU team, and they gave USC some run at home. I'm gonna switch over to Friday night. There were 4, I thought, really really interesting games on Friday night. Wisconsin handled Purdue. This is not a very good Purdue team at this point right now. We talked about it all summer. Or I talked about it. Ryan Walters, I think in year 1.
You almost convinced yourself to take the over. You were on the under for the longest time,
yeah,
but you almost convinced yourself to take the over.
And I'm glad I didn't. Regardless, NC State, man, what happened? Why was Virginia even in this game? And then Virginia's stupid penalty, right, jumping over the snapper to give them a second.
Calandria, dude. That quarterback is a gunslinger, dude. He just makes stuff happen or not happen.
He does.
I love that guy.
Yeah, and then Boise State, got a good win against the San Diego State team, and Boise State needed that after losing 2 Power 5 games. Was Washington obviously is a buzzsaw right now. UCF, you thought maybe you could have won that game, you didn't. It was good to see them get on track in the Mountain West. And then speaking of the Mountain West, man, Air Force is good. Air Force is really good. San Jose State is not a bad football team at all,
despite being 1-4. Despite being 1-4,
despite they've had a tough schedule. Air Force is on a part of that tough schedule for sure. It was a close game at halftime. San Jose was actually winning at halftime, and then Air Force just 28-0 in the second half. A lot of credit out there goes to Air Force, and that Mountain West race is going to be really fun.
It's going to be awesome.
Got some real good teams there.
Shout out, Georgia State is 4-0. How about that?
Thursday. Yep. I'm sorry about that.
Thursday, Coastal Carolina. They gave them the business, dude. Georgia State, I mean, their running back has been ridiculous. He's averaging like 180 yards a game. They have receivers and a quarterback that's out there making good decisions. He's making good decisions, and he's slinging the rock with confidence. I like what they got going on over there at Georgia State a lot.
Yeah, and shout out Memphis for giving Missouri a real scare in Missouri. And then, did you watch any of that Akron Indiana game, or at least the overtime of it?
No, I saw a bit of like when Akron was up 10-7.
It came on after the Minnesota game ended, and I was already just in shock. And then all of a sudden you turn on Indiana and Akron just in a dogfight in overtime. And that was such a weird overtime. The MAC and Akron's not great. And let me tell you, Indiana's not good either. But that was such a weird overtime.
Although they've made me some money this year a little bit betting on them. But
yeah. Stanford gave you a sweat as someone who took their under.
Under 2.5 wins. I took their under 2.5 wins.
Jesus.
And last week I thought we were sitting pretty when Sacramento State beat them. And then, good Lord, did Arizona go on the road and lay an egg and almost lost to that terrible team over in Stanford.
Speaking of over-unders, though, Georgia Tech, I took their over.
Yeah.
And
you also took Wake Forest over, though.
Yeah, but the Georgia Tech one, that was my one that I love. And Wake Forest can still get it done. I think Georgia Tech, that's a good team. They have 2 losses to Louisville. Could have won that game. And then at Ole Miss is obviously, we'll get into Ole Miss as they play.
Speaking of over-unders, Michigan State under. Look, I know if y'all were listening last week when I was talking and kind of pooping on Caden Hauser, okay, you got to see him today. What'd you get to see? Did you get this? Was he really good? I mean, honestly, he wasn't terrible. He wasn't that bad. But was he your savior? I'm not going to say that Maryland defense is anything particularly strong, considering they lost their 2 star stud corners from last year. Good Lord, Noah Kim. I need to trust my. I almost convinced myself that Noah Kim might be good these first couple of weeks, but I need to trust my evaluations more because he's not the guy. He's not the guy. Michigan State's pretty not good. Now they could surprise some people and win some games. I mean, but Maryland out here. Maryland's 4-0, just like that.
Yeah, just like that. I'm sorry, a very unimpressive 4-0.
I know, but They're
Give them
4-0,
credit.
man.
But better than most teams. Speaking of teams that are winning somehow, Neil Brown in West Virginia, man. I mean,
They're doing it.
they're
They're
pulling
winning ball
out
games.
they're pulling out like the PJ Fleck of 2021 or 2022 and just like running the ball like crazy. I mean, their quarterback had 78 yards yesterday, and they put
On
up 20
like
points
18
against
carries or
Texas
something.
Tech. Yeah, he had 15 more carries, but he was 12 for 21 for 78 yards. That is 3.7 yards per attempt. That's terrible. But regardless, they got the win against a
Yeah.
sliding
Texas
Texas Tech
Tech,
team.
dude. What is going on? Everyone, I mean, well, Baron Morton was playing, right? Tyler Shuck, we got hurt that game or was unavailable. Whatever reason, Baron Morton was in there. Not quite the guy that Tyler Shuck is. Unfortunate for Tech fans. I think it's such a bummer, dude, because it was so close to being the year for Texas Tech. And I think it's not, which is a bummer. But I love Joey McGuire, which is why I'm sad.
Oh,
Which is why
we're still high on them in terms of the future of the Big 12, though. At least I am, and I think you are as well.
I agree. I agree. Yeah, Dawson's Diner didn't look so good. Oklahoma State ISU, that overhit in the first half. I should just realize like
Somehow.
there's still a lot more we didn't know about either of those defenses, I think, because Iowa just turned out to be really bad, right?
Yeah.
And Ohio is a MAC team, right? So Iowa State, their impressive defensive performance has to be put on a scale, right? Oklahoma State playing really good defense against Arizona State. Look where we are now, right?
Yeah.
So I should have been better about that. UCLA plus 4.5, I would do it again, to be honest. We'll get into that game more. I'd do it again. I would do it again.
I can't wait to hear why.
Minnesota minus 12. They should have covered. We both know that. And they lost straight up. UNC was not even a sweat. It was maybe like in the first 2 drives, but it was not a sweat. So honestly, not a great week for me there. But in terms of like picking actual games, good Lord, 7-1-1. Where's that in my Dawson Steiner? Where's that? But we both had a week there. I finally got back to even against picking the spread. And dude, you're hotter than a pistol right now. You're freaking getting after it over there. So I love to see it. I love to see it. All right, let's get into it. Colorado at Oregon. We haven't even talked about it yet. Yikes. I mean, we've known for some time though. Like I know that the national media was trying to like pump up Colorado. I took Oregon minus 21. If you don't recall in our previous show, Colorado, they're just not deep. There's no help for Shedeur Sanders. Now, I know I've been on record saying up until this point, this was last week, up until this point, I would vote Shedeur Sanders a Heisman Trophy winner, and that was true. And it is that vote is liquid throughout the year, right? Currently, my vote does not lie with Shedeur Sanders anymore.
It's still in the Pac-12, though, right? Isn't it?
It might be. It literally might be. We'll get to that later. But Bo Nix played phenomenal. I mean, Marquise Irving, Buggy Irving dominated. Actually, didn't matter who was running the ball. They just absolutely mauled Colorado. We knew this. Like, they're just a team like Oregon, teams like Oregon State that are just much bigger, more physical. I think Colorado might have a tough time handling those guys. And look, Dan Lanning was not shy about it either. He was not shy about it. Yeah, so it was funny though because I'm watching the post game or whatever, and they're interviewing Dan Lanning, right? And Deion was nowhere to be found on the field for an interview. ESPN trying to ride the Colorado bandwagon. Look, I love Colorado. I think what they're doing there is awesome. And maybe the segment's been too much hate, but yeah, it's like we said, it was already incredible that they went 3-0 the way that they did. Oregon, just a much different level of competition. I'm sorry. Oregon has a chance to make the playoffs. All right. Colorado has a chance to make a bowl game, right? 2 different levels of competition. So I respect Colorado for coming out there and still, fighting to the end, doing their best. But Oregon was more physical and more talented than Colorado was. And that was the moral of the story. And they were also fired up. They were fired up. So, I mean, Deion's got that target on his back.
That's what I'm saying. So I took Colorado plus 21, and something I did not consider, which I should have, is normally when a team like Colorado as 21-point underdogs goes into the home stadium of Oregon, usually they're the ones that have a crazy chip on their shoulder. Usually they're the ones playing with nothing to lose. This way, Oregon was fired up to play that game. Like you said, that they play and they jumped on them early, and it gave Colorado no chance. And the thing is that Colorado, they kind of ran the ball fine. They didn't even try to, right? The running backs had 13 attempts, right? Or 14 attempts. And I thought hopefully they get Alton McCaskill going, as they get into Pac-12 play, because they're going to need a running game, right, to win in the Pac-12. Obviously, they don't have the O-line to do it against a front like Oregon, but there'll be rushing yards to be had in the Pac-12 for Colorado. And yeah, I was expecting them to play a little bit more, but this is something called the threshold, right? Where Oregon was just so much more talented that they just jumped on them, and there was nothing Colorado could do about it, offensively or defensively. And the game script got thrown out the window, after you're down, 35 at half. It was just tough. Credit Oregon though. I mean, I don't think it really changes how much I think about either team, and I know it probably should. I'm still pretty high on Oregon, but I'm still really high on the rest of the Pac-12 as well. So I'm not ready to make them, instant Pac-12 favorites by any means yet. And then also Colorado, like they were 21-point dogs. Like they were not supposed to win this game. They got to get healthy. Obviously, I think they have a bye week next week, right? Or no, it's USC and then a bye week. So it doesn't get easier next week. But then after that bye week, hopefully you get rest. Hopefully you get some depth coming back.
Get Travis Hunter back.
Yeah, exactly. Get everyone back for the rest of your Pac-12 play, because USC probably doesn't look very favorable next week for you. Yeah, I mean, a lot was put on Shedeur Sanders, and he couldn't handle it. And not that it was entirely his fault. He took some bad sacks, I thought, early in the game, but also I have no idea what's going on downfield. I have no idea. I mean, his protection didn't hold up, but sometimes he tries to do too much.
He was 23 for 33, 159 and a touchdown. I mean, that's not great, but dude, like given what what does Bo Nix actually do with this squad? I think Bo Nix does worse.
Oh, for sure. If you switch to Sanders and Bo Nix, I mean, you're getting the same outcome here, if not worse. And Bo Nix is great. He's great in the system with an offensive line that keeps him upright, receivers that make separation, then a really, really good running game with two-headed monsters, and even Jordan James too. You throw a third guy in there. In Oregon, Bo Nix is perfect. They can win a national title, maybe with Bo Nix. They can make the playoffs. But yeah, Colorado, yeah.
Wow. This was an awesome game. Florida State at Clemson. Where Florida State favored by 2.5. We both took Florida State to win and cover, but that does not mean that Florida State should have won this game. And I'm going to credit you. You said, if I was to take these coaching staffs, it's crazy to think that the outcome of this game, if you were relying on the coaching staffs, that I might take Florida State's coaching staff this game. And that showed. It showed at the end of the second half when Clemson got in their prevent defense and just let Florida State march down the field and score, right?
Yep.
It showed up early in the second half when they seemed to not make quite adjustments on defense either. And then, Florida State, whatever. But then late in the game, right, when they were milking the clock, right, and it looked like they just weren't even trying to get first downs, and like they weren't trying to score, right? They weren't trying to win the game, right? They were trying to just prevent Jordan Travis from getting the ball again, which, by the way, Clemson's defense got to Jordan Travis a little bit, right? I think their Florida State's offensive line did not look amazing. And look, we saw previews of that in the LSU game, right? The LSU defensive line just got gassed because they were all playing an absurd amount of snaps, right? So I think Clemson with a little bit deeper rotation there, or at least they were rotating. LSU has deep rotation. They just weren't rotating for some reason. I think we saw it a little bit. I thought Kate Klubnik was okay. I thought there was some questionable play calling, but there were also some good looks there too from Garrett Riley. Clemson should have won this game. It's Keon Coleman, man.
He's so good.
An absolute stud. What an absolute stud. Florida State couldn't run the ball, which is wild. Trey Benson, all that NFL draft type. And I don't know, man. What are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I think Keon Coleman is so good. He's probably the best player on this team. Him and the edge there.
Jared Verse, yeah.
Jared Verse. But I credit Clemson. I mean, and the more I was thinking about it, as closer we got to kickoff time, obviously this was after a video. Clemson was not going to roll over, I don't think, and they were pretty fired up to play, and they jumped on them early, kind of. Right? They were up 10 points, and they kind of
They're up 10-0.
pooped. They almost pooped the bed.
Well, they're up
They
17-7
were
at
up 10
one
points
point.
twice. Yeah, they're up 10 points twice, and they blew both those leads. Yeah, I still think Clemson's going to be fine going forward this year. Obviously, the ACC, they can meet again in the ACC. Now, Clemson's got some catching up to do with Duke, already 2 ACC losses there. But yeah, I thought they exposed some more things about Florida State, like you said, the running game, pressure on Jordan Travis. And Cade Clement did fine. I thought he did fine. I mean, he's not going to be elite. He's probably never going to live up to that 5-star billing he had coming out of high school, but he can be very serviceable for them. And the receivers made some plays at times, and they're obviously missing. Is it Antonio Williams, right? Their explosive play guy, which obviously hurt Clemson, but credit that defense. I thought that defense played really good, for most of that game. And
Yeah, I
it
do
was nice to
too.
see Xavier Thomas actually, playing and make some impact plays because I feel like he's been kind of quiet his whole career.
Yeah, I
There.
mean, like missed field goal, fumble 6, right? I mean, like kind of back. I mean, this Clemson team, right? They're not ranked in the AP top 25, right? Because I mean, look, in all reality, they haven't done anything to earn a top 25 billion from the AP voters, but I think this is still a top 20 team in the country from a talent perspective, especially after this game. I think it was kind of confirmed in my mind. I mean, we talked about the Duke game, like Clemson moved the ball on offense, right? And they just couldn't capitalize for whatever reason. So, look, credit Florida State though. Credit Jordan Travis. I mean, look, they were down against LSU early, and they responded. They were down against Clemson early, and they responded. So, and what that is a lot of seniors on this team, a lot of seniors, and that's what gets it done sometimes. Maybe Florida State's not a national championship contender team, but boy, they're looking like a playoff team for sure. I mean, they're looking like a playoff team for sure. And those two are different, by the way, in case anyone was confused about
And
that
I think,
statement.
and not quite to this extreme, but think Georgia versus TCU last year. TCU had deserved to be in the playoffs, but they did not. They were not on the same field as level as Georgia was last year. But yeah, in addition, I think Florida State's going to be in some really close games in
About Duke, they
the
got Miami,
in the ACC. The ACC is no joke here.
Florida. Is that game in the swamp, by the way?
That changes everything. Let me check
I don't
that real
know.
quick. It's at Florida, which wow. And they
Yeah.
still have to play Syracuse too, and Syracuse isn't great, but
I mean,
get
Syracuse is undefeated,
all
but
those they get
is
all those
Garrett Trader
ACC
gonna
games at home.
Garrett Trader's gonna carry the ball 20 times a game? I don't know. Is that
He's gonna have
sustainable?
to.
He's a dog.
It,
I get it, but like, good
now I think
lord.
all their tough games on and the rest of their schedule in the ACC are at home, which is huge for them. Now, if you told me at the end of the year, you're Florida State, you beat LSU and you beat Clemson, and you're 4-0 right now, you got to be ecstatic. You're ready, and you still should be ecstatic if you're a Florida State fan for sure. But in terms of a guy that's thinking about the future of their season, I don't feel as good as I thought I was going to feel. I still think there are some holes on this team that they gotta actually fix, and I don't know if they'll be able to. But yeah, like you said, credit to Florida State, credit to Mike Norvell. They're building something great there at Florida State and Clemson. God, man, there was a time where they just won these games. They just won these games with Dabo Sweeney, and now they can't seem to do it.
Yeah. Oklahoma at Cincinnati in Nippert Stadium. I did in fact take Cincinnati plus 14.5 on our preview picks, which is crazy that actually covered. I don't know. This line
The hook,
closed at
man.
13.5, right? This line closed at 13.5. So if you took Oklahoma minus 13.5, you covered, right? And so
The
and you
hook.
obviously were on Oklahoma minus 14.5. Well, tell me what are your thoughts on this game?
First of all, credit to Cincinnati and that environment they came out with, and they came out kind of firing early. I thought they had some chances in that first half that they blew. They missed a field goal, right? And they had chances, points to be had there, and they kind of slowed down Oklahoma's offense for most of the game. I mean, Gabriel ended up having still over 300 yards. He still did his thing, obviously, but God, that defense is good. And you called it. You said interior pressure. This is why you took Cincinnati, because of the interior pressure that they were going to be able to get on a shorter quarterback like Dylan Gabriel, and it proved exactly how that was it. And Cincinnati's got some good defense. They're going to play well. A lot of teams tough in the Big 12. But yeah, Oklahoma's they're a good team. They got a real good secondary. Peyton Bowen, it was nice to see him make some plays.
Freshman.
And yeah, freshman. Yeah, he had a nice pass breakup there. And I mean, I remember Jones played fine. He threw a bad pick. One of the picks was really bad, and they couldn't really get the running game going. And they tried. And credit to Cincinnati for continuing to try. But yeah, I mean, I was expecting a little bit more from Oklahoma, but credit to Cincinnati. It's hard to win on the road.
I mean, I think I do want to credit like Oklahoma's defense, specifically on like third down. Ready for this? So I mean, Cincinnati had 21 first downs, which is the same amount that Oklahoma had, right? If you look a little bit deeper, right? Cincinnati was 3 for 15 on third down and 1 for 4 on fourth down, right? Not getting it when it counts, but also just credit to Brett Venables just dialing it in when it matters. And that's exactly what you hired him to do, right? You hired him to recruit, obviously, but you also hired him. Like, this defense was abysmal last year, right? It's really, really nice to see Brett Venables take a gigantic step forward in a big game like this on the road and capitalize on third and fourth downs, right? And what's crazy, though, is like we talk about Texas and Oklahoma being like higher power, high steam offensive games. Oh, we're going to be taking the over. Dude, I might be licking my chops at the under for that game because both of those teams have shown me that their defenses are pretty good. Their defenses are pretty dang good, both of them. So that's going to be a fantastic game, I think. I do think the interior pressure that Texas is going to bring Oklahoma down the road will be a problem. But also, Texas does. I mean, they have really good defensive line. Do not misconstrue what I'm about to say. All right. But Dante Corleone is a bit of a different animal. He is an absolute monster, right? And he did show that at times. He had a sack, I believe. He gets back there. I mean, but that's why also like in the future, when Jackson Arnold's in there, that's not going to be a problem with his size. It's not going to be as big of a problem. So, look, and if Dylan Gabriel goes down, I'm not worried about Oklahoma in the slightest from what we've seen from Jackson Arnold. That kid is a stud. But, yeah, overall, good game from Oklahoma. I mean, fans probably were not liking the 14-point win, but I think this could have been uglier. It could have been. It could have been uglier. But also, I mean, credit to Cincinnati. I think everyone thought that they were going to be absolutely terrible this year, right? Which I said, like, hey, credit to the people that got the over-under win total over 4.5 before it moved 5.5.
That'll hit. That'll hit for them.
That they're going to hit there. It looks like it. It looks like they're a pretty solid stinking team. So, yeah, credit to both these teams.
I want to add real quick. Like you mentioned, I thought bringing up the Oklahoma's defense and Brent Venables is obviously a drastic improvement from last year, which we all saw coming. But to see it actually come to fruition is really, really exciting for Oklahoma. And we talked about it last week with Texas in terms of their margin of error just goes up because of their defense is playing well, where they played a game where their offense laid an egg against Wyoming and their defense kept them in the game long enough for their athletes to just overpower, Wyoming. Yep. And it's exactly what happened here with Oklahoma. Cincinnati had chances. They should have been up at half. They should have been up 17, or they should have been up 13 to 10. And Oklahoma's defense prevailed in the red zone. And when they got in their half of the field, which they didn't do last year. And that obviously gives you, a certain floor to your team into certain games where you have to play, to wait for your offense to make some plays in the second half, which they ended up doing, with the big long touchdown drive, in the third quarter there. But yeah, credit to Cincinnati. Like you said, they're going to continue to get better. Emory Jones is what he is, but you can win some games in the Big 12. There's some games to be had for sure.
Ole Miss going into Tuscaloosa. We both took Alabama -7. There's no way Nick Saban's losing 2 back-to-back at home. There's no way. And look, Jalen Monroe showed up when it mattered, I guess. Not to say that he played a great game. Ole Miss was down a lot of guys. I mean, right? No Trey Harris. I mean, Zachary Franklin. Where even is this dude? I don't even know where this guy is, right? Quinshon Judkins played the game, but was a little bit banged up. Their offensive line's questionable. This Bama defense is legit. They're really good. So I don't put a lot of stock into this game. I'm not coming out of this game like, oh, Bama's like really legit, right? Oh, this validates Texas's win, right? I mean, it was a really good win for Texas, obviously going into Tuscaloosa and getting that win. But Jackson Dart, I think he did what he could, but man, that one interception was so bad, throwing it in a triple coverage to like, I mean, you don't have like Trey Harris in the game. If you're not throwing it up in triple coverage, if you're throwing it up in triple coverage and it's not even a Trey Harris, right? It's what are we doing, right? But obviously he was out for that game, so I mean, Bama was able to run the ball a little bit late. Late, I still think they're. I don't know why they're struggling. I mean, this offensive line is just not what we thought it was going into the season, and they're still kind of struggling a little bit running the ball at times. But late, obviously, it opened up in the second half. Jason McClellan got his. He ate like he does. Um, but well, no. What are your thoughts?
I do want to give credit to Alabama here. Now, I talked about in the preview when we broke down this game, Ole Miss could absolutely won this game, and they could have won it on Saturday for sure. And they could have been either one or two outcomes from Bama. I thought Bama really was going to control how the outcome of this game went more than Ole Miss did, which I don't think is very an obvious statement. But it could have been on the wrong side of a pissed off or desperate team, or it could have been on the team that's not bought in. And it was nice to see for Bama fans that they are still bought in. This was a very pissed off team, especially defensively. And a point in the game I want to bring up that could have been really, really bad. All right. So Bama goes down on their first drive and they move the ball well. They get in, close to the red zone and, they get sacked. Whatever, fine. Will Reichert bails you out again like he has his whole career. And you go up 3-0. And then Ole Miss, boom, 7 plays, 75-yard touchdown, whatever. And then you go 3-and-out. Almost goes 3-and-out. But then you get the ball back and you're driving in the red zone and Jalen Moreau throws another stupid pick in the red zone. And you're like, oh, here we go again. This is why he got benched in the first place. This is why, whatever, everyone hates him. And then your defense shut down Ole Miss. They went backwards. And then he blocked a punt. Now you didn't even capitalize on it, right? Where it was first and goal on the 1 yard line. He had a bad snap and whatever, which is it's more unfortunate, but also like it's kind of characteristic of these Bama teams we've seen in the past couple of years. But I just thought give a lot of credit to that defense for continuing to not get frustrated that your offense is struggling, but more so put it on yourself and continue to go out and ball. Their D line is awesome. Their edge rushers are great. Tim Smith up the middle. Jaheim Otis didn't play a ton, I don't think. I think he's been hurt. If I'm not, I guess he played a little bit. But yeah, I just love Dallas Turner. He made a one play where it was going to be a big time play for Ole Miss, where it was a slip. The tight end was basically running a slip. And he read that and immediately changed direction. That was incredible. But yeah, like you said, I'm not ready to say Bama's back and that they're the SEC favorites once again, but I still think this was progress. It's not going to be immediately changed. You're not going to have an elite offense and a team firing on all cylinders. It's obviously a work in progress, but again, you can finally take a sigh of relief. Like, hey, it's not over. Nick Saban hasn't given up. This team hasn't given up yet. Now you can still end up going 9-3, and Bama fans would think the world's ending. But regardless, it could have been a lot worse. You got to win, and you looked good doing so.
UCLA at Utah. This was our one game where we really faded each other, both winner and spread. And CD did cash there. Obviously, he took Utah -4.5. I took UCLA +4.5, and I took their money line. Both of those were on Dawson Steiner, did not hit. But guess what? If these teams played again next week, I would take the same thing. I'll take money line and I'll take the points. Dante Moore, he's incredibly athletic, and I thought that would overcome some of the differences that they would have rushing the passer, right? What Utah did, they had 6 guys on the line of scrimmage at all times on defense, and you didn't know which one was going. And Dante Moore just doesn't have the tool set available to him, the knowledge to know how to protect himself. I mean, his stat line was 10 rushes for 51 yards, and I'm pretty sure like 8 of those were sacks. 8 of those rushing attempts were sacks.
Negative Utah defense. 51, by the way.
Negative. Sorry, that's what I meant to say. -51. This Utah defense, though, is legit. They're 4-0 right now, and Cam Rising has not stepped on the field. And they've played Florida, Baylor on the road, and UCLA. What are we talking about here? This Utah team is awesome. This defense is flying around. Reed is probably in a lot of people's eyes, Pac-12 Player of the Year or Defensive Player of the Year right now. Had that pick six basically on that first play. Dante Moore to that nasty pick six. That ended up being the difference in the game, right? Utah on offense did not do anything special at all. UCLA's defense was really good. They held Utah's running backs to 3 yards a carry. And guess what? UCLA's running backs, they had 2.7 yards per carry. So it's not like both teams couldn't run the ball, but I'm saying like it's not like Utah did a whole lot on offense to warrant deserving to win this game, right? I still think Dante Moore played with a ton of heart. It's easy to say that about a true freshman, but he was out there slinging the fourth quarter after having just getting rocked all game, not knowing what he's looking at on the defensive side of the ball, just throwing that pick six early. He battled, man. He battled, and I'm so high on this kid for the future. I'm so high. Just can't let this break his confidence, because I thought he was still out there slinging the rock, making that big fourth down, that fourth and like 17 or whatever, where he just escapes out of the pocket somehow and slings it down the field, rolling to his left. That was awesome. Set up a scoring drive that actually gave him a chance to potentially win the game. But of course, Utah's defense was just too much.
Yeah, I'll say it should have been 14-0. And I'll because I do think that that last touchdown there by UCLA, it's not garbage time by any means, but it was a 4th and 23, whatever. Like that was kind of a really good play made by the tight end. And obviously Dante Moore. I agree with everything you just said, except for the fact that if they played again next week, it'd be a different outcome. Because, like you said, I mean, Dante Moore is still going to be a freshman next week. And that's why I'm a little bit nervous going forward for UCLA. Because you saw the blueprint. The blueprint was they got a bunch of transfers on the O-line. Let's stop the run and let's blitz the heck out of Dante Moore. And not that he's unathletic enough, not athletic enough to actually maneuver the pocket. It's more about the pocket presence and the pocket awareness and knowing who's coming, who's not, who's your hot reads, right? And obviously Utah, a veteran defensive coordinator like there is, the broadcast kept bringing up continuity, which is something UCLA's offense doesn't have. Transfer wide receivers, transfer running back, freshman quarterback, new O-line, right? Transfer O-line.
All of which are better than anything that Utah has in offense, by the way, just to let you know.
Except Jaquin Jackson, who I think got hurt in that game. And obviously, he only got 6 carries. And
but is Carson Steele, really Carson Steele is also a very good running back.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But Jackson's got game breaker, tendencies. And obviously when Cam Rising gets back, it'll look different offensively for Utah. But it didn't have to today. And I just hope, like you said, I hope Dante Moore's confidence isn't broken. And I don't think you do break, a 5-star true freshman's. Like Dante Moore obviously is a gamer. Like you said, his confidence won't be broken, but some of the habits that he learned and some of the stuff that he had to deal with in Utah, might carry in the next week and the week after. So hopefully that the coach staff can get after them and make sure it's okay. I still thought UCLA is a pretty good team, right? Latu, obviously really good. The D-line played very good for UCLA. Like you said, neither team moved the ball great. I thought Nate Johnson, he is what he is. He's a really good athlete.
That's it.
He did enough. At times, he made some big-time throws, maybe like 2 all game, but that didn't be enough. That pick 6 on the first play changed the whole game. I agree with you on that front in terms of UCLA chasing 7 points the whole game is a lot different than a 0-0
14.
game.
They were chasing 14. But I think
I guess so. Yeah.
Well, also UCLA, they had a bad fumble. I was again Dante Moore, bad fumble in the red zone there too, with an actual chance to score late in the game or in the second half there too. So I just again, a couple plays away from UCLA winning this ball game. And I think if Dante Moore got into another ball game with these guys, granted with Nate Johnson a quarterback, I think Dante Moore would just know how to protect. He's going to know how to slide the offensive line. He's going to have running backs in the backfield. I think Chip Kelly kind of let him down a little bit.
Yeah. Now I'll say for Utah, their schedule is brutal. You mentioned in the opening here, it doesn't get easier, right? You go at Oregon State next week, who lost to Washington State, whatever. Washington State's a wagon right now. Oregon State going into, Corvallis, right? That's going to be tough. And you're probably going to be without Cam Rising again. I assume They're probably going to wait for the bye week to bring him back, which makes a lot of sense. But if you can win that game somehow, some way, like you've won the last 4 games you've played, that is crazy impressive. And you get a healthy Cam Rising. Cam Rising, you get USC, you get Oregon, Washington, and then even Colorado at the end there. I mean, Utah, it doesn't get easier, but it just, you can't bet against Kyle Whittingham. And I'm going to learn. I got to remember that the rest of the year. As for UCLA, how do you feel about UCLA going the rest of the way?
I still feel really good. Their defense showed up again, like they have been all year. And Dante Moore, I mean, we just keep seeing flashes, right? And I think UCLA will be able to run the ball on teams not named Utah.
Yes.
The headliner game, the Pac-2 championship, Oregon State at Washington State. Gosh, how can you not think about, like, the Heisman conversation is going to come up in the national media, and not a single one of them is going to mention Cam Ward, by the way. Not a single one of them. And this kid is playing better than any quarterback in college football right now. It is absurd what he is doing. It is absurd what he is doing. Josh Kelly's receiver also had an insane game. Every time I looked, he was just making some ridiculous yak play or some ridiculous one-handed catch. He was unbelievable. Oregon State still got theirs on the ground for sure. Absolutely. And that's just what Oregon State's going to be. We talked about, though, DJ in a big game on the road was going to make those. Look, he brought this team back. They made a late surge in the fourth quarter, but ultimately it just was not enough. And that pretty, it wasn't a terrible, well, it was a bad interception, but it wasn't backbreaking because it was early in the game. And but they just weren't able to. It's hard to come back as a team that identifies as a team that runs the ball a lot. It's hard to come back in a game when you're down. What was it, like 21 or 24 that they were down? It's hard to come back like that. It's hard to come back like that. Damian Martinez is still unbelievable. He still is really good. That offensive line is still good. BJU is still better than Chance Nolan or Ben Gulbranson, who they would throw out there otherwise. He's still better than any other option Oregon State has. So I still feel really good about both of these teams moving forward. Washington State immediately has perked my interest as a team that could contend if they can sneak some wins. If they can just sneak a couple wins, good Lord. Gosh, and the Jake Dickert conversation continues. I got absolutely railed for taking Jake Dickert over Billy Napier. And gosh, I know it's still early, but with every week, Jake Dickert is looking like a stud. So is Cam Ward. What are your thoughts? We both had Washington State, by the way, to cover and win this game, just to let you guys know.
Yeah, I'll be on record as saying I've been on Washington State since week 2. All right.
You took their over. You took their over 6.5.
Yeah, I'm talking about just like in general. But yes, I did take their over. That was a play for me. And here's why. Look at this drive. Just drive against a pretty darn good defense in Oregon State, right? Touchdown, fumble, touchdown, missed field goal, touchdown, field goal, turnover on downs. I mean, the game could have been worse for Oregon State defensively. They were lucky to only give up 38 points. Now they're playing against a quarterback, like you said, in Cam Ward, who is scorching hot right now. Everything he touches is gold, except
scorching.
I think he had a fumble. But God, I mean, they're playing awesome right now. I think if you switch the environment if this is in Corvallis, it's definitely a different game. I mean, if you're Washington State, though, God, you still have a tough schedule, and all the games are on the road.
They're all on the road. They're all on the road.
Oregon. I would love to see Washington play Washington State at Washington State this year. I think that could be like a top 12 matchup type game. And I think Washington State, if they're at home, could totally give Washington a real good run for their money. I'm going to continue to say it. Cam Ward, and you say, I mean, he deserves more credit than he's getting. He's been awesome. And like you said, I think DJU, he was fine. And he's always going to be a guy that needs help, with the wide receivers around him. the running game. To me, I think that they got into a negative game script, which never helps him, and it doesn't help any quarterback for that matter. Um, in terms of Washington State, just unstoppable offensively in the first half. So yeah, I like you said, I still think we're both high in Washington State and Oregon State for that matter. If they continue to play both the way the styles they're playing right now, they're going to be really dangerous, really, real dangerous.
Ohio State at Notre Dame. I think this was an awesome game, right? I mean, there could have been a lot more points scored on the board, a lot of points left on the board. I thought Sam Hartman. I think people are blaming Sam Hartman a lot for that. I don't think there's a ton of blame. Dude was lowering the shoulder, fighting for first downs in the first quarter of this game. I mean, what are we talking about here? This dude's got it, right? He's gonna be fine. Kyle McCord wasn't insanely impressive on the other side of the ball. Trayvon Henderson had an explosive play. I mean, this is an awesome game. It does stink that Notre Dame had what, like 10 guys on the field that last play. And Marcus Freeman in the post-game press conference was like, well, we didn't want to send someone late on the field and get a penalty. Oh, so it would be
He
half the distance to the goal. Like
he
what? Like,
he also mentioned that it was they were going to call timeout, but like you were out of timeouts. What like the good old Chris Webber effect? I don't know. I think that was interesting.
yeah, I thought yeah, I mean, look, Ohio State just knew what they needed to do. This was a tough game on the road. Like it was. Notre Dame actually, I thought ran the ball pretty decently. I think they averaged like 5.5 yards per play. So it's not like they weren't doing anything, right? They were still kind of decently moving the ball. It's just a slower game, slower paced game. I thought neither defensive line was taking over the game, and I actually was impressed with Notre Dame's defensive line. I've been not pooping on them, but I've been kind of weary to trust them in any sense. But Notre Dame's offensive line held up against Ohio State's defensive line. I think these secondaries just balled out for every team in big plays and big moments when it mattered, man. When it mattered. I'm still high on both of these teams. I think both these teams can still make the playoffs from here. I think a lot of people are like, oh, Notre Dame, they can't win a conference championship. Like, dude, they can, like, USC is on that schedule. I mean, Duke
Duke
is on
this
that
week.
schedule. What? Yeah. I mean, they still have their schedule is still insanely loaded. So I don't have a
Stanford.
problem with putting if they at Stanford. Oh gosh, what we talk about strays. Stanford just took a stray right there. That was crazy. But yeah, Notre Dame with the schedule can still make the playoffs. I think. Ohio State looking good. Although if you're Michigan though, you might be licking your chops. And granted, Michigan hasn't looked great so far this year, but you might be licking your chops, thinking, "Well, you might be able to run the ball again." Penn State might be thinking, "Oh, you might be able to run the ball in this defense." But yeah, credit Jim Knowles though, getting it done though when it matters. I think people there's a lot of doubters on that guy, a lot of doubters. But credit Ohio State for a dogfight of a win, dogfight of a win.
Yeah, this is one of those, turning point type of games. I think, for Ohio State, obviously it wasn't pretty at all, but that last drive, you have to be impressed with Kyle McCord and that offense and what they did when they needed it to. And it was guys not named Marvin Harrison Jr., right? And he had the big catch on that, on the last drive. He was banged up, for the fourth quarter of that game. But Emeka Ibuka is really, really good. Cade Stover is awesome. He's probably becoming one of my favorite players in college football, just with how he plays. Xavier Johnson obviously had that big catch and run. And then obviously it was Chip Trayanum to punch it in there at the end. I do think there are still question marks offensively with Kyle McCord. I think they just pressured him all night, and I think he made some plays. He made some bad plays, obviously, but I think this is huge for Ohio State and a confidence booster for Kyle McCord. You saw how excited all of them were, and this was a dogfight. Like this game, the spread was 3. Like this was supposed to be a close game, and that's exactly what it was. All the hype around it, all the home crowd for Notre Dame was actually awesome. A lot of people poop on that stadium, for not having big time crowds in big time games, and they were awesome. The green out there worked for sure. Lou Holtz in attendance there. Obviously got a shot from Ryan Day there, which I thought was crazy. Like the guy's like senile. He's super old, and I love Lou Holtz from back in the day. Mark Knight doesn't know. I mean, he was one of our childhood heroes, but regardless, um, yeah, I still think Notre Dame's fine. Like you said, they can do everything they want. Like this is a legit Notre Dame team right away. And I was watching this game, and then I was watching the Arkansas LSU game, and I was like, what happens if Brian Kelly loses? Obviously they ended up winning against Arkansas, but Brian Kelly loses and Notre Dame gets a win there. Like that is, could you imagine how many different those fan bases will be feeling with Marcus Freeman? And I
Yeah.
think you can still feel that for sure. I think it's more validating for Marcus Freeman and what he's done in such a short time there, actually being able to compete and look like the same class as a really, really talented Ohio State team already in year two. Obviously, Sam Hartman's got a lot to do with that. I thought he played great. I thought any other quarter, I mean, Tyler Buckner, could you imagine what he would do in that game? He'd be horrible. Who'd throw
It'd be like last year.
interceptions, fumbles. Exactly. Yeah. And that game was close, kind of. But um, yeah, I still think Notre Dame, they've got some big games on their schedule for sure. Like you mentioned, Ohio State's got a bye week, much needed, I think. Much needed. Even though they haven't played anybody up to this point, but this is a physical game for them. And you got to get Marvin Harrison Jr. healthy. Rest them against Maryland and Purdue if you have to get ready for going. You're hosting Penn State October 21st.
Iowa at Penn State. Oh boy, oh boy. This offense. You're looking at the numbers. Oh my gosh. I saw a funny tweet from Bud Elliott. He tweeted, he put out a poll. He's like, "Hey, which first down did you like more? The first one or the second one?" That's awesome. And like, I mean, this, I don't know if this validates Penn State's defense. I mean, Penn State's defense has been ridiculous this year. It has been. Abdul Carter's just an absolute monster weapon. Chop Robinson's been insane. Uh, but I mean, this Iowa, and they're down to quite a few guys. Tight end down, right? You shut Eric Alto, right? But starting two running backs were gone. I mean, bro, this Iowa offense doesn't seem to have changed a lick. Brian Ferentz, his seat is just absolutely scorching, even though it's his dad's head coach. Like, and the thing is, though, it's like if his dad fires him, no one's hiring this dude. No one's hiring this. Maybe it's like an offensive senior analyst or whatever, but good Lord, his offense stinks. I'm so sorry, Cade McNamara. This is not in any way your fault at all. This is not your fault.
5 for 14, man.
But
That is
like,
terrible.
but it's like, how can you blame Cade, right? If it's been every single quarterback that comes into this offensive system struggles to do the same thing, right? I mean, just I don't think Caleb Brown was active for this game either. But even if he wasn't a factor. Who cares? I mean,
It wouldn't matter.
it wouldn't matter. I mean, what was I doing not taking under 40.5 in this game? What was I doing? What was I doing not making that play? CD and I both took Penn State minus 14.5. I mean, I would classify it as not a sweat, even though it was 10-0 at halftime. You're like, oh, does Iowa halftime adjustments? I don't think it was a sweat at all.
I
Yeah, I
think
mean, look,
that
this.
I think that real quick, I'm gonna say with the scoring and whatever, I think Penn State was not sweating at all. At all.
No,
At halftime. I don't think they cared one bit that they were only up 10 points. I thought they knew. And they came on and scored 3 straight touchdowns. So they didn't even put in the second half.
yeah,
And
I will
yeah,
say Iowa's defensive line, I don't think is the absolute weapon that we thought it was going to be, or at least I thought it was going to be entering the season. But they still stopped the run. I don't know that I don't know that people are talking about it enough, but I don't know that Penn State's offensive line is exactly what we thought it was either.
which is frustrating because
Just
they're supposed to be really good and they have
supposed to
two
be
elite
awesome.
backs. That's the annoying part there. And to help a guy like Drew Alar, it would be really nice to have a really reliable running game for a team like Ohio State, who we saw get run on a little bit, against Notre Dame.
Yeah. I mean, look, credit still goes to Penn State. They absolutely mopped Iowa. I'm sorry. Look, but here's the thing. Iowa is still my favorite to win the Big Ten West at this point.
That's what I was about to say. I'm like, who in the Big Ten West is going to do anything about Iowa. And that's the problem with Kirk Ferentz. And if you're an Iowa fan, you're probably frustrated, like, what's like, why are we so mad? But it doesn't matter. Like, if you're really good at one thing and not making, turnover plays or, letting other teams beat you, you're never going to beat a team like this at this point. But you can win the Big Ten West for one more year until the divisions get messed up and all that stuff happens where you got to shift philosophies. But I mean, Brian Ferentz will be gone by then. But well, hopefully, if you're an Iowa fan, but
The
hopefully,
Big Ten.
hopefully,
Oh no, here you go.
well, for Brian Ferentz's sake, hopefully he turns it around. I hope he does, but I don't think he will.
Yeah, I got the Big Ten West standings pulled up here.
Don't even
First
tell
place,
me.
Wisconsin at 1-0 in conference. In second place, you have the Northwestern Wildcats with a
Fuck.
1-1 with a 1-1 conference record. Minnesota right there, 1-1 as well in conference, but Iowa and Illinois are both 0-1. And
Nebraska.
Purdue obviously melon stinky. I mean, but it just that's the Big Ten. To say the Big Ten West is wide open is an understatement.
Well,
So,
and now maybe Wisconsin, a couple weeks removed from that Washington State loss, doesn't look quite as bad because Washington State's a damn good football team.
yeah.
So now Washington State exposed things of Wisconsin that Iowa will not be able to do offensively. But yeah, like we said, Iowa can win in every game. The rest of or can win every Big Ten West game, and Penn State. I mean, they got to win, and it was kind of dominant, So good for them. The whiteout, obviously, you knew that was going to happen. Why was this not on Dawson's Diner? Real quick, what held you back? Yeah, what held you back?
Iowa defense. That's it. Also, too, like,
yeah, which is fine.
This game in past years has been just weird. Like, I think there was like a 41-10 game one year with like Iowa putting up 41 points. I mean, this game's just been weird in the past. And I'm like, I felt weird about it. I should have taken the under. But my only thing was like, then like, what if Penn State just puts up 42 points on their own, right? Like, because Iowa's offense. So I learned that last week when I took FAU Clemson under, right? And FAU just gave Clemson the ball in the 30 every time. So it like, of course, the overhit because Clemson hit it themselves, right? So, yeah. Texas at Baylor, the last game we're talking about, recap wise. Not much to say here in terms of like, we know Texas is a good team. Offensively, they did what they needed to do. Took a little bit to get going there, but this defense is ridiculous, right? And we knew that Sawyer Robertson was going to struggle. He was out of the game late there. Didn't matter. This was a beatdown. 38-6 doesn't do it justice. I don't think this was a smackdown. Early on, though, oh man, Baylor 7-3 or whatever, and Quinn Ewers threw kind of a not so great pass, but it was inaccurate, which caused it to like the Baylor defender, can't think of who it was, but he was about to take it to the house. Like if it was an actual accurate pass, he would take it to the house, and also it would have been 10-7. But that's just a funny hypothetical there. But this was out of reach. We both took Texas minus 15, or I took Texas minus 15. You took Baylor plus 15. I know you're trying to hold on to that, taking Baylor over 7.5 wins, but or over 7 wins, whatever it was. But look, what they did need Blake Shapen back so bad.
They do. And now I take away from this game, I didn't learn anything new about Baylor. I mean, we knew Sawyer Robertson's not very good. We knew they were going to struggle to run the ball against a really good Texas front. It was more about, is Texas going to play well? And are they going to make a statement win in the Big 12? Which we talked about was like, hey, you're coming in this year. You got to let everybody know you're not messing around. The Texas is back of the past never really meant something. This year you actually do. And I thought they did that. And it was nice to see Quinn Ewers put up points. Malik Murphy even got in the ball game. That was nice. Jonathan Brooks ran the ball well. Obviously, the tight end Sanders went for over 100. And then you shut down Baylor's offense. They had to put in RJ Martinez, who didn't do much more than Sawyer Robertson. So it was a nice, convincing win for Texas. It was good to see, them not be sluggish for 2 straight weeks after kind of sleepwalking through Wyoming, and especially going on the road in a hostile environment. Who I guess I wouldn't call it quite hostile, but it's still hard to win on the road in Waco there. And they're only 1-0 in conference play, but they still got a lot of work to do. But I, yeah, I was hoping to see a little bit more from Baylor, but I'm not surprised that Texas came out ready to play, especially in that second quarter, and they didn't ever look back. So good for Texas, good for Sark, good for Quinn Ewers.
Yeah, and now you're kind of looking at Texas when you're looking at the schedule. You're kind of chalking. Now you're really looking at that Oklahoma game and it is circled because Oklahoma's looked really good up to this point. They played a tough game against Cincinnati. We talked about it during the Oklahoma Cincinnati recap. If you're watching this video, then you want to check that out. Talked about Oklahoma giving up some interior pressure to Cincinnati's defensive line. Could be the case too. Texas might give Oklahoma problems there as well, which could stagnate the offense just a little bit. And look, Texas' offense is fine. I know that their offense success rate or whatever is not great. Their offense is fine. All right, they're running the ball fine. Quinn Ewers is making plays when he needs to make plays. He's a pretty good quarterback. So I shouldn't say I'm a big fan of Texas Giga Maggies, but I'm a big fan of the potential of this team. I think they can be. This is in my eyes right now. This is a playoff team. So they're number 3 team in the country. The AP poll. It's a playoff team in my eyes.
For sure. And I wouldn't step over Kansas quite. And obviously the talent gap against Kansas and Texas
And Texas
is going to be
loves losing to Kansas. They love losing to Kansas.
That was even before Kansas was good. They were losing, Texas was losing to Kansas. But all jokes aside, Jalen Daniels is legit. And he's the type of athlete and the type of player that can give Texas defenses a problem. And we talked about this. We talked about it all season. In college football in 2023, elite offenses can beat elite defenses no matter how good that defense is. If that offense shows up to play, they're going to put up points. And I think Kansas can do that. I wouldn't call their offense elite in terms of like Ohio State last year or even Bama a couple 3 years ago, right? Or even, I guess Texas when they want to be talent wise. But they can put up some points and they can really scare Texas. If Texas lets that happen, obviously it's going to be a look ahead spot. Oklahoma, the Red River rivalry game the next week. But you get past these 2 weeks here and you get into your bye week, and then it's a really manageable schedule after that. Kansas State is not who we thought they were going to be at this point, right? BYU might even be your toughest game after
I
that.
think Kansas State's still good. I think they're still good. DJ Giddens, holy cow, what a game, by the way. Was it 4 touchdowns, 200 yards?
For sure.
I actually think they're good. I like Will Howard. I like that defense.
Yeah. But like even at TCU, obviously it's going to be at TCU, but it's not, the team of last year that you had to beat, that you'd lose to last year. And then Texas Tech, 10 of the year, obviously they're struggling right now. They can get their act together by week 13. But yeah, I think if you're a Texas fan, you got to feel really good about it. Switching over to Baylor. Oh, man. It kind of gets really easy. Now they could still, really struggle in a lot of these games. But you look at the rest of
calling
that
West
schedule.
Virginia an easy team?
No, and that's who I was about to circle. I was like, hey, it's gonna come down. It's gonna come down to West Virginia.
Oh
and
gosh.
West Virginia and Neil Brown are gonna snake me, for my over 7.5 with Baylor for the year there. But obviously you got a lot of things to get right. Hopefully at UCF you can get a win there without John Rice Plumlee.
Hey, Timmy McClain. Dude's kind of frisky. I don't know.
No, he is. But Texas Tech is sliding. Then you get a bye week. Hopefully Blake Shapen's back. And then you can really attack the second half of your schedule there for Baylor. I'm not giving up hope on you guys. Hopefully that team hasn't given up hope. But 1-3 is not the start you wanted this year when you had a winnable game like Utah. And obviously Texas State's unexcusable. But I wouldn't put too much stock into Texas kind of bullying you because they're going to do that to a couple teams, a good amount of teams in the Big 12 this year.
Thank you guys for tuning in. This is the Redshirt Sophomore podcast. Make sure you guys, if you like this content, like the video. Like the content, like the video, right? Subscribe if you want to hear more of this stuff. We got previews and recaps every single week for games that we choose. But hey, if you want us to cover a specific game, send us an email at theredshirtsophomore@gmail.com. Or, hey, send us a little tweet at the Redshirt Soph. Guys, we love all the support. We've had so much support these first couple of weeks of college football. It's actually been incredible. feels like every week we're seeing more and more views, more and more subscribers. It really is amazing to see this. We love what we're doing. And just, the dopamine that you guys give us for checking us out, it's immense. And we would be doing this even if you guys weren't here, right? But we really, really appreciate you guys. Check out some of our other videos too. All these week 4 recaps. If you want to send one to a buddy, we're gonna have these cut up in short segments. So if you just wanted to send your buddy the Oregon Colorado game, or just want to send your buddy the UCLA Utah game, you can send those to them. These will be out around the same time that this video is out. If you're finished watching this and you've made this far, the other videos are already out. All right. So, but thank you guys so much. CD, anything from you?
No, let us know what your favorite game was this week, in the comments. If we missed somebody, if there's a game you want us to preview for week 5, we're going to figure that out right now in the next couple of days. So let us know what you're thinking, how this week went for you. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully your team won. But yeah, I can't wait to next week. We got a couple more days until college football. I don't know what I'm going to do with myself.
Yeah, literally. But till Thursday, we will see you guys in the next one.